Hello makers, I'm back with another quick and easy card using Whimsy Stamps products for the Whimsy Stamps Halloweeners design team. Today's card features another one of Whimsy's really fun digital stamps. This is the Jar of Eyeballs and it can be downloaded from their website. I thought it would go great with this paper because I think those little circles that are throughout look a little bit like eyeballs to me, and so I thought it went perfectly with this jar of eyeballs. I got the paper from this Slimline paper pack called Retro Vibes. Has a lot of great colors and some really fun patterns that can be used throughout the year, but I thought that a few of these might work really well for Halloween, so that's why I grabbed this paper pack. And then I'm, of course, going to be using some cardstock from Cardstock Warehouse. They have sponsored us by giving us some cardstock to use for our cards. And I think this purple amethyst color will be the one that I'm going to use for my card base. And they also gave us some matching envelopes that go as well. And I'm going to be using that rust color on today's card too. So that's what I'm using. And let's go ahead and let's get making. So I started by, of course, coloring my digital stamp, and I used all kinds of different distress watercolor pencils to color in the iris on each eyeball in a different color. And I wanted the jar to look a little bit like an old, apothecary jar. So I used some grays and some browns. And then I think that last one was scorched timber. And then I filled it in with frayed burlap. I thought that would be the best color for giving me kind of that apothecary color. And on the eyeballs, I did use a little bit of speckled egg to give them kind of a little bit of a blue tinge on the white part. This cork I colored with vintage photo and rusty hinge. So those were the main colors that I used. And then I went through and just added a little more for shading here and there as I felt I needed. So I tried to keep the colors to go with the colors that were in the paper so that it would match really well. And then there are no dies for the digital stamps, so you just fussy cut them out. Now I wanted to make my card base, so I cut one 8.5 by 11 piece of amethyst cardstock in half to make it 5.5 by 8.5, and then I scored it at 4 1/4 and folded it, and there is my A2 card ready to be decorated with all the die cuts and wonderful things from Whimsy. Now I'm going to go ahead and cover up any white edges with some scorched timber brown distress ink. And so you can see, let me explain what these are. So these are some die cuts. I cut these out with the Weird-O frame die cut. And so it cuts a frame, but it also has the center part that's the punch out. So the punch out, I cut it twice. I cut it once from the Retro Vibes and once out of the orange, the rust cardstock. And so I just kept the punch out center from the Retro Vibes, and I kept the frame from the rust cardstock. And so I went around both of those with the scorched timber brown ink just to kind of, help it all look old and, Halloweeny. That's what I was going for. I also did that around all of the eyeballs that I'm going to explain in just a second, because the wonderful thing about Whimsy Stamps digital stamps is that you can resize them. So as you can see here, I'm putting different sized eyeballs on those circles on the Weird-O frame die cut. And the way that I got those is that I just resized some of the eyeball jars to be the size of eyeballs that I needed. I kind of measured the circles, then I tried to measure to make sure that the eyeballs would be the right size. I printed those out in the different sizes. I fussy cut some of the eyeballs out of the jars, colored them, and there they are on the little circles. And I thought that would just add a fun of course, whimsical uh, little feel to the weirdo frame, and I thought it would match perfectly with the jar of eyeballs. So anyway, that's how I accomplished that frame. So now I'm attaching the weirdo frame by itself to the center of the card where I want it, and then I'm going to go ahead and put that retro vibes pattern paper. I'm going to fit that right into the center. And so you'll actually end up with an orange center, and you'll end up with a retro vibes frame that you can use on a different card. Now I've got my Trendy twine out, and this is a three-colored Trendy twine. So the jar has some string that is printed on it, but I wanted to actually tie some twine over it. So I put glue over where the lines for the printed twine were on the jar, and I'm just gluing actual twine over it. And now I'm going to go ahead and tie a little bow over there. But before I do, I wanted to thread on. I also ran off a second tag, and the twine wasn't going through, so just add a little bit of glue if it frays, and that'll help you put it right through any of the holes or something like that if you're having trouble threading your twine through holes. So I punched a little hole in the second tag and attached it over the original one. I stamped the sentiment Peekaboo from the Peking Giraffes stamp set. And then I had a couple of extra eyeballs, so I did put one on the tag, just again for, a little bit of fun. I wanted to have some dimensions, so I put foam tape on the back of the jar of eyeballs. And as always, I add a little bit of glue on top of that foam just to make sure that it stays in place and it doesn't start roaming around on my card. And then I just went ahead and put that in the center of my card, just making sure that I've got it centered there with all those fun eyeballs around the frame. And then I used a white gel pen and I just drew around the outside edge. You could sew if you would like, but I just thought, for a change up, I sew a lot on my cards, that I would just use a white pen around the outside edge. So there's that Peekaboo that I got here from the Giraffes Peking stamp set. And there's the Trendy twine, and you can see it's got the orange, the purple, and the white colors that do pull in colors from the background as well as the eyeballs. And that is our finished card. So again, this was a lot of fun. This one did take me a little bit longer with the whole resizing and making sure that I had the right size, but I think that it turned out just the way I had imagined in my mind when I saw this jar of eyeballs. So I'm really, really happy with it. And so I hope that this was helpful and that it inspires you to kind of look at some of your frame dies a little bit differently and see how you can maybe Halloween them up for the season. So thanks so much for watching. As always, if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the comments for this video. I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. And if you want any of the products that I have used here, I have those listed in the description for this video as well. And with that, I want to thank you again for watching and wish you a very creative day.